Yeah, so I think these 5 steps are still slept on a lot in the industry. A lot of people are trying to like circumvent the steps or try and not do one or the other because some of them are time consuming. It's not like a
Yeah,
walk in
this
the
isn't
park
a get
necessarily.
rich quick scheme, is it?
No, it's a little bit of effort involved, and so whereas other people will put out their 5 steps on Twitter, and it's just like learn HTML, get a job, type things, and they gloss over the details on that. So we're more into where we really do get people jobs, and so we see the problem students face. That's why I wrote the book, because I see what students fail at, and I see on Twitter and YouTube what people talk about. Hey, I can't get a job, and then we look at certain things. We're like, we know why, and so like
Right.
we put together 5 steps.
Right. So that's what we're
So
going to talk about today. So I have
yeah,
a little slide for each one of them. So let's start with our step number 1, and it is learn the right technologies.
yeah.
What
So
does
the
that
first
mean?
part of it is, you got to learn to code. Okay, so everyone knows that I got to learn to code. Now, what we talk about the right technologies is we see a lot of people spin their wheels by learning 8 or 9 different technologies. So
Right.
that's mistake number one. People making this is they learn a lot of stuff
Yeah.
without really
Or often try
thinking
to
about.
learn.
Yeah, and they're all over the place. They don't really build anything, and they don't even know what they're trying to build. Therefore, they don't even know what kind of jobs to apply for. So what we're saying is align the technologies with the job that you want to do. So think about web development. We still think web development is the most in-demand job in America. So
Yep.
if you just want to learn coding and I just want to get a coding job and you really don't care, learn web development. If you're going into data science, okay, there's a different stack there.
Right.
If you
And
want
that's
in
what people,
desktop
that's
development,
kind of
there's
the
a
problem,
different
isn't it?
stack there.
You
Yeah.
have to pick the things that align. So people will be like, I'm learning Python. Like, why are you learning Python? Because somebody told me it was easy and it's in demand. Yeah, but easy shouldn't matter.
For what?
And in demand for
Yes.
what?
Yeah,
What do you want to
exactly.
do?
So like,
You got the
right.
horse before
So
the cart kind of thing, or the cart
yeah.
before the horse. You got to think about it the correct
So
way.
I'm gonna make it simple for you. So let's talk about data science. So if you're learning Python, you should pursue a career in data science. That's what you should be doing, because that is the most used language inside of data science, period. I mean, like I know there's ML.NET and C Sharp's trying to do those things, but they're also Azure, and everybody's really embracing Python as well, because it is the most used language in data science. So if you're thinking about Python for web development, yeah, you can do it. It's just not used as much as other stacks. So pick the most in-demand stack for the thing you want to build. So Python, pick data science. That's what you need to do. If you're picking web development, there's other stacks that matter more than Python, and that's why you can't just learn one thing and go to market, because you got to align your skill set with employer's skill set. Now, what a lot of people will tell you is like, hey, just learn anything, doesn't really matter. You can show them that you can code and you can think logically and you can solve problems. And I hear all of this stuff from a lot of people, but I'm telling you, if you interview for a ASP.NET position and you haven't done it and you've done Django or React or whatever, and they're looking for an ASP.NET developer, while you may can do that job, you may could learn it and onboard it, they're going to look for 3 other people that already know how to do it.
Right.
And so they're going to pick that candidate more lines with them over you every time, because your stack doesn't align, especially in the junior roles. So like in the junior roles, hey, we need someone who can do this. And if this is your first job, they don't know really if you can do this job. So
You haven't proved yourself.
they know that yeah, even though you have projects on it, they might say, yeah, but like this is the learning curve, and can you overcome that in your first role? Now, if you're a 5th-year role out there and you're a mid to senior and they want you to learn something different, you have more experience, and you can pretty much talk to like that, and you can overcome those. But in junior roles, it's very difficult because they're going to look at other people that match the stack correctly. So let's talk about some stacks inside of web development, since that's the biggest one.
Yeah.
There's 3 that we think you should know.
Yeah.
So obviously HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is a no-brainer. That's what you got to know.
It's the core
to do
for everything,
anything
no matter
on the
what you
web.
do past that.
Everything
isn't
you
it?
do.
Yep.
What we're talking about is, okay, what do I do on the front end far as like a front end framework? I do believe that for web development, you need to know a front end framework. Can you write everything with HTML and just pure CSS and some JavaScript? Yes. But are people doing that? In general, no, not in the industry.
No, exactly.
That's not what they're doing. So like,
Yep.
So you have to know a little bit of a framework. And so that frameworks come in about 3 flavors right now. It's React, and then there's Angular, and then we believe there's ASP.NET. There's also Spring, which is built in and around Java. I'll throw that in there. And then there's lesser extent, there's Vue.js. So React, Angular, and Vue.js are the JavaScript frameworks that you should know. And then if you take what we do at the Bootcamp and you take the ASP.NET route, well, that's got the framework and the server-side language all rolled into one. We use something called MVC, and you don't necessarily have to have a React front end. Now, you could do that. You can. It's not that you can't. Then if you're using React, then you have to get a server-side processing language like Web API. So let's talk about, if you're going full stack, we got to have a back-end language that we know. So full stack is pretty much C# or Java, in my opinion. There is some Node out there too as well. So those are the three out there you want to do. Now, Node, primarily you write JavaScript on the back end, using something called Node.js. So you can write React and Node and get a full stack app. You also can write ASP.NET and use C# on the back end. And you also can write React on the front end and use Web API with C# on the back end. So we believe that ASP.NET gives you the best opportunity to win in the marketplace currently right now. All right. Can you win with React? Yes. Can you win with Angular? Yes. We're talking about the sheer volume and things like that. Can you win with Spring MVC? Yes. So if you pick one of those four, you're going to be okay. And what you need to do is find jobs that match the stack that you're in.
Right. Look at your market. You've got to do some research.
Look at your market and just see, kind of like, okay, there's a good billion React jobs out there. I'm going to learn React. I found one Angular. So you would learn React. Or, hey, like this guy's at Coder Foundry onto something. Everything I see is .NET and C#. And we're like, yes, we know.
We hear that from students coming to the course all the time for the virtual bootcamp.
Yeah.
It's always the same story.
Yeah. Now, bigger and larger companies typically are using C# over Node for sure. But we do see companies, small and large, also using .NET as well, especially that React Web API combo is a fantastic combo to give you the scalability in the back end over Node, faster, more performant. And then you get that JavaScript front end with React, Angular, or Vue, or however you want to do it. So HTML, CSS, learn a framework like React, maybe ASP.NET with Razor Pages, and then a back-end language. You need to know a back-end language. I think it's either C# or Java. I do believe C# in the last probably 18 months to 2 years has separated itself from Java. Now, overseas,
with .NET
Spring
6,
MVC is still really strong, but here in the US with .NET 6 and now .NET 7 coming out, they are investing in the tooling, the speed, the performance, all of those things. So if you know nothing and you're like, I have no idea what to pick, and you're asking me, I'm going to tell you to pick ASP.NET and C#. That's what I'm going to tell you to pick. That's what we teach at the Bootcamp for a reason. We think it's highly marketable skill.
Right.
And if you don't like that, then pick something else. But if you're picking web dev, I'm saying React, Angular, ASP.NET, C#, and to a lesser extent, Spring MVC and Java.
Somebody's writing in chat right now, but they're not. But they probably are. Somebody's just about to write. But Bobby, you teach C#. Of course, you're going to say learn C#.
Yes, because it's in demand. That's why we teach it. So, like, I'm not going to teach a dead language in my bootcamp and try to get people jobs in COBOL. That's why we're not teaching COBOL. I mean, like, there's no real opportunities in COBOL. And I know there's a couple of COBOL derivatives that, man, it's hot. I'm paid a lot. Yeah, but it's
you are paid a lot because you're one of 10.
Yeah, it's way less. So we know that. Now, if you're looking at mobile, let's say you switched over to mobile, you also got to pick stacks there. Yeah. So there's 3 ways to do this, and 4, which I'm going to talk about, is like it's used, but and you'll be surprised when I say this. When we look at the Apple tooling, when we look at Swift and Objective-C or whatever they're doing right now, it only builds iOS. It doesn't build cross-platform. So most companies are choosing cross-platform tooling to do this. Very few are building Android stack with Java Kotlin, and then iOS stack with Swift, and building out 2 separate teams. So what's happening is you're seeing a lot of cross-platform tooling coming out. Even Google has went the cross-platform way with their tool Flutter. So Flutter comes from Google, React Native, Facebook, and now there's .NET MAUI, which is brand new, just released, coming from Microsoft. I think those are the 3 primary ways to build cross-platform apps. And I think ultimately you'll see while Swift will always be used and that kind of stuff because people want to build native things, all these cross-platform tooling compile natively to Apple. They compile natively to Android. And .NET MAUI compiles natively to Mac OS on the desktop and Windows desktop as well. So they have a really kind of unique advantage over there.
I saw a stat recently that said it takes over about 80+% of your kind of work is in one place, and that so 80% of your work goes to each of the cross platforms. So it takes up to it's less than 20% additional work to put it on the additional platforms. Like that's amazing.
Or you can build it twice.
Right.
You know, and then you can build it twice with 2 different languages, 2 different skill sets, 2 different teams. But you can do either one of those. So, but what the moral of this is, if you want to build mobile apps, there are stacks for that. So again, Python isn't the stack that's going to be used to build mobile. It's just not over there. There's nothing out there you can do. And I'm sure there's somebody that has something somewhere.
There is some fringe thing. Yeah, if you look it up, I'm sure there is. You know, I'm sure there is. But it's
not used as much. And so what we do is we're taking the practical approach of, I want you to get a job, build it with the most in-demand tech that you can find in your area, and interview for those jobs. That's what you want to do. And that gives you the best chance to win. Walking in as a junior trying to say, hey, I build it in this way, but I can learn the thing that you're doing, and trying to like sell yourself into that role is a tougher road to climb.
Yeah, it's more difficult, isn't it?
So that's step one, learn the right stuff.
So wow, that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff. That's step one. So step one, I know that seems like a lot, right? It does. Like step one is a giant step. It's like, it is the act of learning to code is huge. We get that. It's a big step, but there's way more to it than just learning to code to get a job. Because you can learn to code for the pure academic part, right? And then not take any of these other steps into account, and you can, just telling somebody you know how to code isn't enough. There's extra things you have to do.
Right. Now, when you learn to code, it impresses your friends, but it doesn't impress employers.
Right.
Everyone look at you like, man, you're just a mad genius. What are you doing over there? How'd you get that to work? And it's cool when you impress your friends, but it's not going to impress the employers. I look at this like, you could do the cups and ball trick as a magician.
Yep.
And then you go on the Penn and Teller show and they're going to laugh at you. So when you're ready to go pro, you have to do pro level things.
Right.
So let's talk about how you learn. And there's 3 ways to do it, which is choose the best method to learn. So obviously we're biased here. We think in-person boot camp's the way to go. We've also built out a self-paced option because we know not everyone can do the immersive method and spend 40 hours a week with us for 3 months. We understand that. So that's why we built a self-paced course. There's also the university and the college route. So all those have different prices and different costs involved. Self-paced learning is probably the most cost-effective version of learning to code, but it can also take you the longest. So
plus it takes the most amount of self-dedication too and self-control.
Yeah.
You have to keep at it. Like that's the part where we see a lot of people like, well, just self-learn. It's like, well, that's easy for you to say because it works for you and you can do it. You have that like ability to be able to do that. We know for a fact a lot of people do not have that ability.
They don't have the internal motivation because you need a teacher, a coach, or a mentor that really helps you along the way. And so when you learn anything, it'd be great if you could just ask someone some questions. And that's the other problem with self-paced learning total is it's hard to get questions answered. So when you look at boot camps, while most boot camps are priced around the same, you're going to look at any boot camp's going to be right around, excuse me, $15K. Got a little thing in my throat.
Yeah, they're between 10 and 30. They're all over the place.
Yeah, somewhere in that range. Yeah, depending on the cost of the ISA, cost of your loan, if you're looking at total out of pocket.
I think some of them are like 30 now, straight out of the Hey, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Shut up a bunch.
So while that seems expensive compared to four-year university, it's definitely cheaper. So I put that in the middle option. Four-year university is the most expensive option. If you go to the community college route, that can be cost-effective as well. There's another way that you can do that. But however you decide to learn is you need, after you're learning, pick the best methods you want to do, but you got to figure out what's my outcomes for my learning. Right. And my outcomes need to produce something I can show an employer. So the problem with CS university degrees is that typically they're not focused on the get a job part of it. They're just focused on the academic part of that. And so what you see a lot of times, and not all CS degrees are created the same, but you'll see that I take a class in SQL, I take a class in maybe web dev, I take a class in something else. I may take a compiler class, or I may write everything in C. And none of that really aligns with the types of jobs you're interviewing for, and you don't really have anything to show a lot of times. Now, some colleges give you a capstone project, so you may walk away with one thing, but typically you built it as a group, and it's not the strongest thing ever. So that's the problem with this. Now, with self-paced learning and bootcamps, you typically are focused on building certain projects, and then you can turn around and show that project to an employer. It's more practical, more hands-on of putting all the pieces together. So we do see a lot of CS grads come to our bootcamp because they just want to do the practical hands-on part of it.
Yeah, because
3 months here.
I think the thing is,
cohort.
A CS degree is not a coding degree. They are two different things. The CS, it's more, it's fundamental things, which can help. I'm not saying any of those things are a bad thing. They're not bad to know. But you've got to be willing to spend 4 years to get that fundamental knowledge to then spend another 6 months learning to code, because that's what it's going to take. Exactly. And if that's what you want to do, that's okay. But you're like 5 years in before you start getting a job. And trust me, the job you're going to get, it's not going to be any better than somebody who graduated from a boot camp. It's just the same job. I mean, it's the same job.
So now what's the fundamental shift? I will say this, is that we've seen a lot of employers starting to recognize quality boot camps like Coder Foundry and saying, hey, we want to see your grads. Like we see what you're doing. We understand what you're doing over the last 5 years, and we get it. This is a good way to do it. Now, we're not trying to sell our boot camp. For us, there's a lot of boot camps. We have a lot of competitors out there. So like you can go wherever you want, but that's the three main options. You can go to university or community college, you can go to boot camp, or you can go to self-paced learning. We offer 2 ways that you can do it from us. You can go to learn.coderfoundry to figure those out, or you can go somewhere else. But you got to learn somehow, some way. Somewhere. We do believe a teacher, a coach, or a mentor gives you a significant advantage over just learning on your own. So, and people probably can testament that. You know, I've always put it this way: you can't learn boxing by watching the Mike Tyson learn how to box videos, but you could learn boxing if he would take you under his wing and teach you in the ring. Fighting Mike Tyson on a daily basis, you would learn a lot about boxing. So. You need a coach. You need a teacher.
There's definitely something to be said for a mentor, isn't there? Definitely gives you a big advantage. Yeah, definitely. So it all comes down to how much time do you have? How much money do you have? Those are 2 are kind of the things in making that choice.
Internal motivations.
And internal motivation. Like,
Yep.
You've got to make the best choice for you.
Make the best choice for you.
Okay, so that was step 2. Step 3. So what do you actually do once you've learned to code?
So you've went somewhere, you've learned to code. Now you have to build a portfolio to show someone. Your resume is not going to win the day for you because you don't have any work experience, especially people that are trying to break in. Now, as you gain experience, your resume becomes more important than a portfolio because it's what have I done lately type thing. But if you're trying to break in, and this is what we're talking to, people that are trying to break in, you need a portfolio. It's proof of work, and you just show them a portfolio of apps. What we say here, and you've heard us say it a lot, is it needs to be apps that are business focused. And we did something recently about JavaScript apps. And this is why we build the bug tracker so hard and we push it so hard in it, because the business focused app that checks all the boxes. It's got a database, it's got role-based security, it solves a business problem, and the problem is immediately recognizable by the hiring person that you're talking to. So just because you have a business-focused app, but it's in a domain that is obscure, and you sit there for 20 minutes trying to explain to them why your app is useful, and if they come away from that discussion and they say, that app's stupid, then they just discount all the hard work that you did. You know, like it's like, and it's just human nature. Like, it's a dumb app. I'm not even gonna look at that. You know, I don't know. But if you can show them something they immediately understand, the work is the same, pretty much. You build your obscure app versus the well-known app. The work is the same.
Exactly.
One of them, and this is the mistake I see from so many people on Twitter. So many people in the YouTube comments saying, I'm not building a bug tracker. Everyone's building a bug tracker. Like, I'm going to build something unique and different. And if you don't build something unique and different, you're going to fail. You're going to lose because they want to see unique and different jobs. They also want to see They also, I see a common comment is that they want to see a project that you've pushed in the marketplace that you got 10,000 users on. If it doesn't have 10,000 users on it and you just build it for yourself, it's a useless project, you know? And the point is, if you had 10,000 people on your bug tracker, you would be interviewing for jobs. You'd be selling bug trackers.
You'd be selling it, exactly.
You know, I mean, like, so like, that is just, it's nonsense. And it comes from people, I think, that don't understand a lot of times how to break in, or they've already broke in and they don't even understand why they win anymore. They just show their resume and they get interviews.
And exactly. Yep.
They don't understand why they're winning anymore. Or it's from people that haven't tried to code or tried to code and failed, and they just want to bring everyone else down. So what I'm telling you is, if you build an app like a bug tracker, I don't care if everybody on the planet has a bug tracker. It doesn't matter. If you can show that and talk about it, show them how you built it, that you didn't just copy it, and you can talk about it in in-depth detail, you're going to win. Now, having said that, we push bug trackers hard, and still to this day, it's not like we see them every day. It's not as famous as people think.
It's kind of funny when we do see one in the wild, isn't it? It's like, hey, look, somebody who didn't go to Code Foundry bought a bug tracker. That's awesome. We love that, because that's kind of like, that shows we have a little bit of reach somewhere else.
The other app we built is a blog. We think a blog is a very good use case. It allows you to push your thoughts out there in the stratosphere. It also shows your ability to make role-based security and solve a business problem that's easily understood. So those two apps that we built here on the self-paced course are the best ones that I think you can build.
Yep.
So
cool. Okay, move on to our next. So the ability to talk about your code.
So we've built a whole course around this, Kevin, if you want to show the interview. The interview takes the top 30 coding questions and relates them to code bases. So one of the techniques that we saw people do to win early on, before we really kind of solidified this several years ago, we'd say, why did someone lose and why did someone fail? What did they ask you? Well, they asked me what an object was and a class was, and they didn't know the answer. Okay, why didn't you know the answer to that? You know, and so then the other person would be asked the same question, but not only would they answer, they'd immediately go to an example. So they would take the example and show how they made an object or how they made a class. And so, you know, an object obviously being an instance of a class, they would show where they instantiated a particular object. And so those are things that that are very important, that some people do by default natively. They talk in terms of examples, and some people try to memorize everything and they can't talk about examples. So what you need to do is go concrete first, which is, hey, what is an object? And you tell them an object is an instance of a class. And then you say, by the way, I've used one in a bug tracker. And then you go over to that and show them where you instantiated a class inside the code base. You either talk about it.
I'm sure that question's in here somewhere.
Yeah, it's in there. Oh yeah. What's the difference between an object and a class?
There you go. There's the...
Yeah. So I think it's, so I think we did this so you can start trying to tie code that you've written to interview questions, and people that turn interview questions into demos win most of the time. Okay. People that don't do that have to answer all those code trivia academic questions and be on point all the time. And so like, it's very difficult to do that. Whereas if you start taking the question and relating to code, and we use this memory trick, which is, for example, we talk about this. If you say, what is MVC? And you could say it stands for Model View Controller, for example. And that's your memory code or trick to trigger your memory to think about the example that you need to give.
Right.
And then you talk about an MVC, how you used MVC on the blog or how you use MVC on the bug tracker. I think that is the best way to prepare for tech interviews. So you're saying, okay, I'm not learning C#. I don't need to take your dumb interview course. That's great. Go Google the top 30 JavaScript front-end coding questions.
Right.
You know, that's going to be about closures. Same going to be about anonymous functions. You know, like what's an arrow function? You know, how do you sort objects in an array? And those are the types of things that you're going to run into. And you can, if you can nail 10 of those in an interview, which you're not going to get 30, but if you know the top 10 or the easy ones and turn those into demos really quickly, you can take up time during the interview, show your expertise better, and not have to answer all 30. You need to answer, the top 10, but you don't know which one they're going to ask. So that's why we say, hey, code up just Google the top 30 interview questions.
Right. Exactly the same framework applies no matter what language, right? As long as you use the same framework, turn your academic answer, which you're going to know and you're going to kind of know off by heart, and then you're going to turn that into an answer or into a demo, which again, you already know. You know the point in your code where you can talk about this too. There's a little bit of preparation here to make sure that you know how this applies to something in your code. And it's like you've practiced this a million times. You've spoken this 5-minute spiel a bunch. You've practiced it. It's easy. It's just now you're just performing it.
So you're talking examples or talking to a demo. The second thing is if you Google the top 30 interview questions and you're going down through there and you're like, I have no idea how to answer that. And then you answer it and you're like, do I have a piece of code that shows that? If the answer is no, go write something and turn it into a demo. Go write a project that utilizes that. So if they're asking you about the Fetch API and you don't have anything with Fetch API, you need to go use that. If they're asking you about arrow functions and you don't have arrow functions anywhere in your code, go do that. You got promises. Do you know what a promise is in JavaScript? Okay, if you don't, go learn it, go understand it, put something in a project together and show it. So I think that's the best way to win is turn a technical interview into a coding question. Now,
the other thing around this is, no, go ahead.
We're building something else too. So a lot of times you get code trivia, but sometimes you may get a take-home challenge or a coding challenge as well. And so now we're building something else to help you through what we think the top 10 coding challenging questions that people are getting, because they're getting that. And then you may have to whiteboard that, or you might have to take it home. That's our JavaScript section in our course is built all in and around that, but we're going to come out with something new here soon with 10 more of those. And guess what, Kevin? We're going to release that for free.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's gonna be kind of cool.
Not to be too much of a plug, but if you do want the free interview course, you can go get it. learn.codefoundry.com. Links down there at the bottom too. You can go get that. It is free. Sign up for a free account and go get it.
Yeah.
I will say the other thing about the talking about your code as well. The other thing that strikes me is it gives you. It shows that you know your stuff in terms of you've actually written it. Right, because what we have is we have some people who will be like, well, I'll go grab this, I'll go clone this repo, and I'll be like, I'll change a couple things, and guess, I've got this awesome app now. Look, it's mine. 2 questions in about that app, and you're gonna be like, I don't know the answer to that. I'm gonna know you didn't write it. It's downhill from there. It's immediate failure. If you can write it and talk about it and understand why something works and how you solved the problem, it's just gonna you're going to get a job. Exactly. Your ability is just going to be so much higher. You feel way more confident too. Yep. Okay. 5th step. Always a controversial step.
Yeah, I don't know why. I have no idea why.
But it always is. It's always polarizing. It just is. Always.
So a couple of things about what tech Twitter, and I look at tech Twitter, hates recruiters for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. I think the people that don't hate them are very successful in their careers and they know the value of it. The people breaking in and the people with a negative outlook on life hate recruiters because they look at it in a different way. And let me reframe what the relationship should be. The recruiter is being paid by the company to find developers. They need to find you as a developer. And what a lot of people are doing here, and I'm sometimes playing the recruiter role, and I see people do it to me all the time, is like they'll apply for the job, then they won't reach back to us. Then it's 3 days later and they'll say, oh yeah, I'm sort of interested, I'm not. And then we get them all the way down the offer side and then they turn it down. We had someone last week that turned it down. And so like you blow relationships like that when you say you're interested and you're really not, or you even ghost the recruiter. And then I know there's 1,000 people typing right now, but my recruiter ghosted me, so I'm going to ghost them. It doesn't work that way. So like the recruiter isn't your best friend. You're not going to Christmas. You're not getting married. Now, if you marry a recruiter, that's fine. You might, you might find one that you can marry. But either way, assume it's a business-only relationship. The only time they're going to reach out to you is when they want you to interview for a job. That's great.
Right.
Work with 8 of them, and you'll always be employed.
Yeah,
you know,
that amazing complaint that like, man, my inbox is filled with these damn recruiters. We see something like, what are you talking about? You literally, they're coming to you with their job, and you're upset about it. Like, really? Even if it's not the right fit, it's okay. Like, just engage with them and just say like, hey, it's not the right fit for me. Like, keep me in mind for the next one.
Or I'm not interested. I'm not really looking. I'm pretty happy. Reach out to me 6 months.
Trust me, you're not. But here's the thing: that recruiter might have your dream job. You might seem like you're happy. But they may be coming to you with being like literally your dream job, but you're just gonna like shun them because you know it's a recruiter, whatever they can. You know.
The other thing too is accept the recalls and the emails, respond to these recruiter emails, build relationships with them, because when you need them, then you can like email them and say, hey, you know, I happen to be on the market. You got anything? But if you've ghosted them 3 times, you've not showed up to interviews, you turn down offers, and you say, hey, I'm looking, I need something, they're gonna like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go somewhere else, because that's how they get paid when you get hired. Look at the relationship. It works for you and them at the same time. The other complaint we see, my recruiter doesn't know how to code. They're idiots. They don't know anything about what I do.
Right.
Yes, they're not programmers.
They're not coders.
So what? So what? Educate them on what you do. Tell them why you're going to win this role. I used to always say this to recruiters when I was into contracting, which I was never out of contract. They call me on the phone and say, hey, Bob, you interested? Yeah, I'm looking. Let me tell you this though. If I interview, I'm going to get it. So let's get some interviews this week, because I might get some interviews next week. I usually win every time I interview. That was always my pitch to them. You know, so if you let me interview, I will take the first offer I get. And I'm going to
because that's what they want. They just want you to take it, right? Because if you don't take it, they don't make any money.
They don't make any money. And so like, you know, I put the onus on them to say, hey, get me in front of them quick. Let's go. Let's move. You know, and so like I typically interview really well. I typically win. And then when you win for them, a recruiter, they're going to call you all the time. They're like, man, I'm going to call you. Of course,
you're a guaranteed paycheck.
I'm a guaranteed paycheck. I just need to put him in front of him. You know, and so again, going back to the other steps, when I contracted for several years, this is where this came from. Me winning roles, me personally doing these things, showing you how to win is what I did. And what we do is the consulting company. Like, hey, when I talk to people, talking concepts, don't call them concepts, talking concrete things you've done. This is what we can do. I can do this. I can do that. That's why we do it. And then work with a recruiter gives you a sales arm that you don't have to pay for, that's repping you to more companies than you can find. Just know that all the jobs on Indeed aren't listed. Most of them are run through recruiters, especially in the tech field. And so imagine if you played in the NBA, would you have an agent? Yeah, you got to navigate the salary cap. You got to know what you're worth in the marketplace. So many people think recruiters are lowballing you all the time when they're really not. I mean, if they're getting 20% of the first year annual, and they can get you 85 or 100, and they know it doesn't matter to the company, they're getting that 100, man, because that's 20 grand versus, you know, less than 20 grand, you know? So like, whatever that number is, 15 grand or whatever it is. So they're going to try to maximize yourself out there. They also know what the salary cap is for the position, and they try to maximize that position, you know? So they're never trying to lowball you. Now, if you're working directly with HR, they may or may not tell you. It's a different story. I'm talking about the tech systems of the world, the people that we work with, the third-party recruiters are out there. They're trying to, if you work with them, they're trying to maximize your opportunities. Now, they also can give you some hints and say, hey, man, I know you want 280,000. I can't get that. I could get you this.
They'll tell you exactly.
Yeah. And so like, is that really something you want to, I mean, is 280 your wish, or is 280 a firm? In other words, like if they're coming in and say, I think I can tell you what the market's like right now. So, and that's the same thing when we hire other people in our life. We let the real estate agent price the house. They tell us what it's worth. I mean, it's not like they want to put it lower. They want to make more money. They want to make their 6%. I mean, like, you know,
the recruiter will definitely give you kind of the insider baseball, won't they? They'll give you the truth, because again, they want to maximize whatever you're going to make, because they're making a percentage, and they want to maximize it. And they know that if they tell you that the job's 120, but you insist on 130, they know they can't get it for 130. They may go and eat, because they'll go and ask, right? They'll be like, hey, it's 120. They'll go ask. They'll go ask. And if they come back and say no, you don't force it, because it is literally a no at that point.
Yeah. We do that all the time. we'll get a higher thing from them. We'll say, okay, we like your skill set. What I'm going to do, and I'll tell them this, I'm going to go in there and ask for this, but I know that they've told me what the cap is. I'm going to try to get you it. I can't guarantee you that. They may just turn it down on price alone and not even an interview, but I'm going to tell them that you're worth it. And I'm going to tell them that I'm going to try to get you in there at that price. Typically, sometimes they just can't do it. Sometimes they go for it, you know, but listen to your recruiter and build a relationship. Now, not all recruiters are created equal. Some are bad at their jobs. That's why you work with 6 or 7 of them, but it's not, the industry itself isn't bad. They're not trying to trick you into anything. They're just trying to make a living. And if you know what the relationship is, it's a business relationship. They're going to call me when they got something. You really don't want to talk to them anyway if they don't have anything. I mean, what's the reason of talking to a recruiter if they don't have anything?
Right.
So you only want to talk to them when you got a job. That's why you may have 4 or 5 of these that you built relationships based on timing. So
the other thing is too, they will kind of like hold your hand through the whole process as well, which is another advantage. They'll take care of all the tricky negotiation things. They'll take care of logistics. They'll do all kinds of things that you don't have to do. Exactly. And they'll follow up with you too to make sure. And the reason that they're doing that is because if you do poorly, they don't get paid. So they want you to put your best foot forward every single time. So any advice they give you, listen to it. Yeah, they know what they're talking about.
And I have to say this in today's world, right now, in today's world, the hiring, the employer-employee relationship is slammed towards the employee right now. Like there's no doubt. It hasn't always been that way, but right now you're living in a time where an employee has all the leverage in the world. But what bad people do is because they have leverage, they leverage it. So what we're seeing is a lot of people will take an interview and not show up to it.
Yeah.
And because maybe they've got 8 or 9 offers or whatever it is, or they, whatever it is. And so at all times, regardless of where the pendulum swings, if you conduct yourself in a professional manner, you're always going to be employed. So when it goes back and now suddenly we go into a recession maybe, and maybe the jobs are less than they used to be, and maybe the salaries may come down and you've got to really sink for your supper at this point, then if you've always been acting professionally, then you're always going to win. There's other people that kind of they still do the I don't know why they want to play games with this stuff. It's really not. It's not a game. It's just it's your livelihood. I don't understand why you wouldn't show up to an interview when you took it.
Yeah, I don't either. So, that's just being a decent human in my eyes. Yeah. Like if you say you're going to do something, just do it. Like if you weren't going to show up, just say I'm not going to.
I'm not interested in doing that right now.
It's easy.
I'm not interested in that job.
Don't lead them along. That's just bad form. Okay, so those are our 5 steps. Finishing with the partner with a recruiter. You want to do some questions?
Yeah, we'll do the question. I'll leave you this one final note on this is how do people become the 10x developers that we talk about? And it's not that 10x technologies or you go 10x faster than them. These people have a ability to communicate in a positive way to people that aren't technical. And they're also nice. They're information sharers and not knowledge gatekeepers. I see so many people in tech that hold their code like this and say, I would tell you about this, but it would blow your mind. You'd probably have an aneurysm and die if I showed you what this thing does.
And as soon as I show you, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get fired
anyway. So exactly. And so instead of them trying to say, share information, being a nice person, helping people get along instead of being a gatekeeper or a malcontent or always yelling at sales or always yelling at the upper management. Yeah, it's always the sales guys that because sales guys want 20 more features than you can deliver. I get it. But what you do is you say, we can't do that. Here's why, but I can do these things, and we'll get them and we'll put those together and knock those out for you. The people that can communicate in that way, they're the 10X. Those are the ones that make in everything. There's the ones that's at the conference touting whatever, and you see the guy on stage. I mean, because he works well with others and he's a nice person. I think Mark Cuban said it best. He thought in today's world that being nice is the new superpower. Whereas people think grumpy old coder guy is where we think it's cool, where I want to be grumpy and coder guy, like the first Jurassic Park, where Samuel Jackson goes to the guy's workstation. It's got stuff all over it. And it's like, what is this stuff? And so and he was smart at his job, but eventually got eaten by raptors. So that's what it is. So, yeah. All right, cool. Well, we've got any questions here from people? And just, if you got something important, hit us on the super chat and we'll get you on the show. Otherwise, we'll go in order.
Let's see. What do we got? Ori says, how much handholding can I or should I expect in my first job as far as the assistance/training on the actual job goes?
Okay, so I don't know. I mean, it depends on the company. Depends on, it depends. Your job is, you can ask questions though. Ask as many questions as you can, and then try to get assistance from maybe a tech lead or someone above you. Don't be afraid to ask questions. But also do your work, research, Google things, do that. They're not going to train you per se. They hired you because you can code. So they expect you to solve problems.
You have a base level of knowledge, right? That
But they're going to assist you because they want to win. The company wants to win. They don't want you to sit there and flounder. So make sure that you're asking questions. I think is the number one mistake that people do. Ask earlier in the process, not late in the process. If you're on a 1 week sprint, make sure your questions come out on Monday and not Friday morning. So, it's too late then. So, I hope that helps.
Okay. Let's see. Daniel says, what do you think about Node.js versus C#?
What we said in the beginning. I think C# is superior than Node.js. But if you've learned Node.js at this point, go find a Node.js gig and do that. Then you can pick up C#. Just because I like C# I think it's better, doesn't mean you should throw away all your Node.js skills and start over. That's what we're saying is just go with what you got. Go to market with what you know. Now, when you're talking about C#, you're typically talking about ASP.NET and Web API. Are those superior to running JavaScript on the back end? I think it is. But some use cases, it's not going to matter that much. So that's why companies use it. They're both valid in the marketplace. But if you're sitting there, Daniel, and you know Node.js, go to market with that. See if you can get a job with that before you go learn another back-end technology.
Yep. Okay, Brendan says, do you guys see companies using, another Node question, just Node for server creation, or is it a safe bet to just use Express?
Server creation? I'm not sure what he means, but maybe you can clarify that one.
Yeah, not sure. Sure. Let's see. Maybe he did have another one. Oh, he had another question. Anyway, yep. Could you guys give me an idea what kind of roles a junior web dev would take going into the workspace?
So typically what you're going to get is you can work at a larger company and you can work on maintenance of a predefined code base typically. You could be working on greenfield projects under the leaderships of an architect, a tech lead, and something like that, and they give you bite-sized things to complete and finish. But typically, you're working on a business-focused web applications. It could be something that deals in mortgages, or it could be something that deals with car loans, or could be an internal inventory control system, or something in finance. I think
that's the one thing people don't realize. A lot of them are internal, right? A lot of them aren't like you go get a job at I don't know, Citibank or something. Chances are you're probably not working on citibank.com, at least not directly, right? You might have something that interfaces with it, but chances are you're working on some internal tool. It's not. Yeah.
So one of the projects I worked on was there was a famous gene maker here in Winston, and they made Wrangler and Lee's and things like that. So we worked on a system that was internal that talked about how do I get the parts of a gene put together, and I learned a lot about genes, like how many different parts there are, like how many different pockets and zippers and all those kind of things. And so these parts would get assembled into an item, and then that item would get moved into production. So
was it somehow managing the inventory of that then? Is that what
inventory?
It was? Okay. Yeah. Which a lot of systems come down to
genes.
That. Right. A lot of systems do come down to that, don't they? They come down to an inventory management system. No matter what whatever you're making, if you're making a physical product, a lot of every company has to have some way of managing that.
Yeah. And so I was watching a game show on Netflix the other day, the Howie Mandel show, that where you have to lie about the questions you know.
Okay, yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but I've seen it's on there.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So this does have a point. So they asked the question is, what is the little pocket on Levi's for? And they had like 4 things, and and you had to either guess it right or BS the other people and tell them how you knew it.
Okay, I like.
And I was just remarking like, oh, that store's a pocket. It's a pocket watch, and everyone's like, you know, they had one was a pencil and one was something else, and you know,
okay, like phone.
Yeah, and I just knew it was a pocket watch because I remember working at this place and laughing like, I mean, that little thing's for a pocket watch. Yeah, I'm like, no one has a pocket watch anymore. I mean, they said,
it's not even a modern equivalent either, is there? Of something you could, like an electronic equivalent. You just
I mean, you could put 2 quarters in there, but like, you know, I mean, but that's it. But that's what it was for. Anyway, so you learn a lot when you work at these different companies about how things are put together. But that's typically what you're going to work on. You're working on a business process that allows them to do whatever customers are paying them to do. And it's typically in the form of a website. It could be internal, could be customer facing.
Okay. Osama says, hey, and can we consider the bug tracking system as an ERP?
I think they're different use cases. So, but you could make an ERP system as your.
Explain what an ERP is.
Enterprise reporting, I believe. You know, like I'd have to go look and see kind of what the requirements.
Yeah, but what is your general understanding of what it would do?
They use it for just inside of reporting on the financials of inside the company and like how are we progressing in different things. So it's definitely tied to accounting a lot, but it's usually a standalone project. So, but it could incorporate other things as well. Enterprise, meaning it could feed into all kinds of data, not just accounting. So, if someone has a better definition, go for it.
I don't know, but this is funny. The Tamagotchi in your pocket instead of the pocket watch.
Okay. What's a Tamagotchi?
Oh, you don't remember those? The Tamagotchi. So these were in the 90s. I think they came out in the 90s. But they're like that little pocket creature that were like Japanese.
Oh.
The little they had the little digital pocket thing. They were like a little screen, and you fed it and you like watered it and like Tamagotchi. I think there's an app for them for the phones these days, but they were this little piece of technology.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, maybe that's the new version of it. Pablo says, "Hey guys from Uruguay," and hey Pablo, my English is not the best, but I understand you very well. Would it be a problem to study your bootcamp on demand?
If you can understand English, I don't think it'd be no problem whatsoever. The best thing is you can try it for 5 days, and if we have too much Southern drawl, like, I don't know what they're talking about, then you can get out of it in 5 days. But I think if you can understand us right now, I'm one of the instructors on it, I think you'll be fine.
You can also if you go sign up for a free account, so by the way, you can get like the free stuff that's on there, the free content that's on there to give you an idea as well. So you can go give that a watch and see if that works for you. Let's see. Emma says, I'm going into a computer programming diploma program. I have the option to choose between an online program 1 year or an in-person 2 year. What do you think is best to find a job afterward?
I think the best thing you do to find a job afterward is have something to show. So assuming they're both the same, I think in person you may have opportunity to ask more questions. It takes twice as long. Online,
why it takes twice as long? You think it's the same content?
Because it's 2 days a week, and
probably. You think it's the same content though? I wonder if it's the same content, because that's gonna be what matters. Like you said, do you still build something at the end of it? If it's the same content and you can commit to an online program, then take the 1 year, right? If you want to put in the work. Otherwise, the 2 year, if you feel like you need that kind of on-site mentor, I guess. Is there a person you can go to, and what's the support like for the online program? That's the other thing too. If you need that, then
usually they're all the same. There's not any support in those typically.
Yeah. So you have to make that decision. Do you need that or not? It's kind of like when you go to college. At least here in the US, it's like, if you're not the best at math and you have the option to take it online or in person, go for the in-person one because you get to speak to somebody. It just makes it a little bit easier.
Question.
Exactly. The online one you don't. If you feel comfortable with something though, then the online versions are definitely a better way to go. Shorter, just. You're gonna find it easier, so it's gonna be your choice.
But your portfolio is going to be what gets you a job afterwards. So think about that. That's our part of our steps. You need a portfolio of projects to show.
Yeah, because I would say, maybe your question is around like which one looks better on a resume, maybe, and I don't think either one makes a difference.
No,
as long, again, it's skill based. So as long as you can again come out with a portfolio of something, it's skill based. So you know it doesn't matter how long you took to learn it. It's about what you did learn. So yeah. Let's talk about this. Is GitHub enough for portfolio? Because many people say GitHub is more important than a website portfolio.
I've never said that, and they're wrong. I'm just
if they did say it, they're wrong.
They're wrong. You need both. You need a GitHub and then a website. The GitHub isn't more important than a website portfolio. I don't, so you're going to see a portion of people saying this, and I've seen a lot of dev managers, and I just think they're blowing smoke. They're like, "Oh, I look at all the GitHub repos, everyone that applies. I go through them and download them, clone them, and look at them." I'm like, "No, you don't, man. You don't do that.
You have?
You don't do that. You would be there all day long. You know, like, now." What can happen is if you had a GitHub and then you have a link to the published app, they're going to click that out of Xfinity and just look at it. And that may spur them to come back to the GitHub to look at the code. But man, you can really win people over with just the website part of it attached, and then show your public repos that are attached to that website. So I think you need it.
We've also spoken with plenty of recruiters and HR people who will literally
have no idea what
never
GitHub
ever
is.
Go to your GitHub repo ever.
They don't even know what GitHub is,
and they are the gatekeeper, right? That is the gatekeeper. If you can't get past that first person in HR or the recruiter, you're never going to get to speak to somebody who can even clone the thing. So if you don't have that portfolio, you can't even get past that first gate. We've spoke to a recruiter. I spoke to one on Twitter Spaces like a month or so ago. And we're asking, like, do you ever go look at, like, GitHub? And the answer was no, never.
No.
Never. They don't know what to do with it. They may look at the green chart, and that's it.
You're looking at you're asking them to clone it, you know?
Yeah.
They can't do it. They don't have VS Code or any kind of tooling. I mean, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
So build a website portfolio. I promise you it's going to help you out.
Yep.
All right, hope that helps.
Hey. We go back here. I just had to stop that spam. About that in chat.
Okay, that is spammer.
Okay, Resvolt said, how realistic? I don't know. How realistic is it to become a millionaire in annual income through software? Is it worth the squeeze?
Make $1 million a year in annual income?
Yeah.
$1 million a year? I would say it's pretty difficult to do that, even in the US. So $1 million a year. So like if you're going to do $1 million a year in annual income to you personally, a W-2 basis, you're probably not going to do that as a staff programmer.
Right.
So
you're not going to do it in a company,
something, you're going to have to build something and sell that. I think that's possible, but I have not heard of someone working for, say, Microsoft. Hey, what's your salary? Maybe make about $1 million.
Yeah, we don't hear that.
Don't hear that. I know the income's going up. Now, can you become a millionaire by having a really nice salary, like $200,000 a year, and save your money and
invest it well?
That's very reasonable. That's very realistic. But like not an annual income. I'm just telling you the straight story there. But if you built something and sold it, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg is a billionaire, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, he made Facebook. Is it hard to make Facebook? Yeah, it's hard. But
if you have a decent enough, if you have a decent enough product that you can sell, sure. I mean, that's...
Yeah, so I do believe this, though, about software. Software does not have a ceiling of what you can do and what you can earn. And so, like, if you look at, like, being a basketball player, and so you want to be a really good basketball player, in order to make any money whatsoever, you got to get to the NBA and maybe the G League, or you play overseas in Europe.
Well, let's just say NBA.
Most of us are playing in the Y League somewhere, or we're playing on the weekends just for fun. I mean, like, so we're making zero. A really bad programmer probably has a job, a 401k, and a salary. I mean, so like the low end is really good. The high end is unlimited. You could build the next Facebook. I don't know what your ideas are, but I would say that to get $1 million in income, you got to build a software as a service product, or you've a founder with a group of people that are building something out, and it goes gangbusters.
Yep.
So doesn't mean you can't make a lot of money though. So hope that helps.
Here you go. Somebody was just saying, so there's kind of follow up to that. Ryoka says there's a guy who's a millionaire because he made the payment software used in a lot of doctors' offices. I think he's more than a single millionaire. I think it was. Yeah. So basically, you'd have to invent something people use a lot. But yeah, and it's not. And when you say a lot, it's not even really a lot. It's like a reasonable amount. But I guarantee you, there are millionaires out there who have made software who made programs that you have never ever heard of, but they're in a niche that they've made something and you've never ever heard of it. You may have even used it and never even heard of it. Or the company that you're at has used it and you've never heard of it. There's lots of behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yep, lots of them. I think in the movie Underground 6 with, what's his name, Ryan Reynolds, he says, one of his lines was, how many billionaires do you actually know by name? And they're asking, who are you? And he says, I played with magnets when I was a kid, and I built stuff with magnets, and the magnets are used everywhere. It's like, that's how he made his billionaire, $1 billion, and he goes to save the world. But, it was just funny, you build something that can be so niche that no one's ever heard of, and you can literally make $1 million doing it, or a billionaire, that kind of stuff. Just that's the ones that are famous are Bill Gates and, obviously Elon and, Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, those kind of guys. Yeah,
because they have public customer-facing products, right? That's why they have these things that everybody uses. But there's plenty of people who are on that same level who have made stuff that, the airlines use or something silly that you've never ever heard of.
Never heard of. So this guy's right. He made something that doctors use. Yeah. Great.
Yep. Okay, Jules says, is it likely to maintain a good work-life balance in coding dev jobs? Most of the people I've watched have have given very mixed answers regarding the time you spend outside the job.
It is mixed. Depends on what you're doing. Depends on where you work. If work-life balance is your number one goal, then go find a really large company and work there. And I would imagine if you want perfect work-life balance, go to banking.
Right. Yeah.
They move slow at the banks. And
they move very slow at the banks.
Yeah. Don't work at a startup because you got to work a billion hours a week and trying to make this happen. And everyone's just trying to make payroll. And so you tend to work a lot more, but it could be funner. I mean, it depends on what you want. I mean, so I think some companies that works great, and some aren't because of the market demands on the company and the things they're trying to do just involves more time. So, I think bigger companies can offer you work-life balance. Smaller companies, you just need to do what you need to do. So,
Yep.
But if you're young, and you don't really, it's kind of cool, and it's just not coding though, man. I mean, a lot of people look at if you're working for a hedge fund, I guarantee you're putting in 90 hours a week.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people think
there's plenty of other jobs out there.
This. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That where you're always working. So.
Yep. And it's different if you enjoy it too. If you hate it, it's gonna suck. Period. No matter how much even if you're doing it part time and you hate it, it's still gonna suck. That's still gonna be too much. So you have to enjoy what you're doing. If you don't, then it's not just a paycheck. You have to be in it to kind of to win. Okay, RA or Ra says, is it common for developers to transition to project management roles?
Yeah, sometimes it's not. Depends on what you want to do. So here's what I think. It usually happens in your 40s. So say you've been coding since you're 25 and you hit 45. And the next transition of software, whatever that is going to be, and you got to learn a new thing. And you're like, I don't want to learn anything anymore. I'm just going to manage the project.
Right. You're done with learning. Happens. I've done my time in the trenches. I don't want to do that anymore. Right. Give me that project management role.
Yeah, give me that sweet PM role. Now, are PMs important? Absolutely, they're important to the company and they're important to roles, especially in bigger companies. So it's not they don't provide value. It's just typically they age themselves out. Now, I know people that are in their 60s that code really well right now still because they like doing that part of the job. And being a project manager would bore them to tears and they would hate it and they don't want to do that. They want to be hands-on. So it's common, but it's up to you what you want to do with your career. If you're trying to break in right now, I wouldn't worry about that. Just acquire the skills, learn to code, and then if they want to move you to a PM role, then you can decide when that happens.
Cool. Okay, we're a little bit after, but I do want to
cool.
talk
that
about.
Right.
It did go fast. Well, we spent the first hour talking about the 5 steps. So I did want to talk about the book too. I have the book here.
Okay,
we can get stuff we talked about at the beginning, the 5 steps. You can find all the details in here too. So
yeah.
I always have it on my desk, but we should probably plug it too. I don't want to overly plug it, but we should talk about it. No. It is out there.
If you want to do it, it's a good book. It's pretty cheap. I mean, it's not expensive. You can get paperback. You can get it audio. Go anywhere.
Yep.
We just talked about the 5 steps there, and we tell stories, and there's a great picture of Spider-Man in there that you may need to see. And there's a reason behind it. So
exactly. It's a good story.
But hopefully, the 5 steps help you in your job search, helps you in your career. And we want to see people get jobs, whether you come to Coder or not. We'd be honored to be your coach or teacher and your mentor. But if you want to go somewhere else, do it differently. This industry is broad and wide and has opportunities for all, no matter how you do it. Just learn to code, be committed to your craft, and you'll always have a job.
There you go.
So, all right.
Okay. So we'll be back next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Another one of these with some other exciting topic.
All right. See you guys. Keep coding.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.